Versatile Mage. Chapter 431. Have you heard of a vampire before? Can I clarify that these scales aren't the entire snake? Said Mo Fan. Li Junan burst out laughing. It did not matter if the scales took up an entire snake or half a snake, they still had no mark on them, hence they were garbage. Oh. I can't really say they're garbage. These rare scales could be sold for millions, which this petty magician probably considers a significant sum. Unfortunately, the material was far from worthy in his eyes. Mo Fan pointed at the scales and said, "The mark is right there, the blue spot." Li Junan snapped when he saw the man pestering him endlessly. "Do you think I'm blind? There's nothing there. Take your stuff and leave." Mo Fan almost burst out crying. He tried to explain to the man, yet when he saw the infuriated look on his face, he knew that the man would never believe him. "What's with the noise here? Little Li, do you want to get sacked? Don't you know that your master hates being disturbed the most?" yelled an old man whose brows, mustache, and hair were all purple. Li Junan hurriedly apologized to his teacher and glared at Mo Fan. Mo Fan knew it was difficult to deal with the imp. As such, he quickly uttered, "Mr. Huo, I'm Mo Fan, here after being recommended by Old Bao. I'm well aware of your reputation as a forgemaster in the Magic City, and I've visited quite some famous forgemasters, yet they all told me that only Mr. Huo is capable of handling such a unique material, hence I've been waiting for you here patiently." Li Junan opened his eyes wide. How shameless was this young man? What did he mean by waiting patiently? He got here less than 5 minutes ago. Enough with the pestering. Do you think my master will be tricked just because you're fawning over him? Li Junan was in the midst of his speech when he heard the door behind being pushed open. Li Junan turned around and saw his master walking out in his well-ironed shirt in a demeaning manner. His face was expressionless like that of a reclusive expert, but his eyes were glistening with a hint of pride. He came up and said disdainfully, "Ling Shi, Gu Sulian, Che Rong, how could you compare those dim-sighted old pricks to me? I guess they are well aware of their limits, knowing that I, Huo Tuo, am specialized in dealing with all kinds of rare materials. What do you have there? Let me take a look." Mo Fan was overjoyed when he saw Huo Tuo coming out from the room. Meanwhile, Li Junan felt like slapping his own head. How did he end up with such an unreliable master? Li Junan spoke before Mo Fan could respond. "Master, didn't you already teach me how to identify the lineage of a snake species? Normally, those with a higher lineage will have more defined snake marks. This material is totally black with no sign of any snake mark. I'm sure that it's a very common material." Huo Tuo walked up to the scales and inspected them carefully, while his expression kept changing rapidly. "You idiot, didn't I tell you to put precious materials on the best ice sheets? Why did you put them on the table? Look how dirty the table is. Do you know how much extra effort I need to put in if the materials catch even the slightest dust?" Huo Tuo turned around and scolded Li Junan. Huo Tuo quickly grabbed an ice sheet and slowly transferred the snake scales onto them. The flicker in his eyes now displayed a hint of greed. Such a pity, these aren't really rare scales. Otherwise, they would be extremely precious. Huo Tuo let out a sigh in the end. Mo Fan immediately had a different view of the old man. How impressive, these scales have been purified. It's not a real rare material. It's not too bad. Just that the purification could be slightly better, so I can craft a piece of very advanced armor equipment from it," said Huo Tuo. Li Junan almost went crazy. What in the world? So the material was actually man-made, without any snake mark. It was a fake, something you could find from the street stalls. "Master, are you sure that you don't want me to throw him out?" said Li Junan. "Throw what out? Your stupidity is urging me to throw you out instead. Who told you they didn't have any snake mark? The mark is so big that it's covering the entire material," snapped Huo Tuo. Li Junan was utterly confused, and muttered under his breath, "That's just the color of the skin. A mark is a mark. Mo Fan felt sorry for Li Junan, who was being condemned. He said softly, "What you're seeing are just two extremely small scales from the snake. Its snake mark is blue, so you'd need a few pieces of them together to see the actual shape of the mark." Li Junan opened his eyes wide and blurted out, "How could a snake be that huge?" Li Junan's exclamation served as a reminder to Huo Tuo, who was still admiring the snake scales. He glanced at Mo Fan in astonishment, and asked, "Could this material possibly be?" Mo Fan nodded with a smile. He knew the old man was an expert. Who would have thought? "No wonder old Bao recommended you here. It's true that the others are clueless about what to do with it," said Huo Tuo. The black totem snake was no longer a secret, thus Huo Tuo easily guessed the origin of the snake scales. "Then I have a favor to ask Mr. Huo. I want to craft a piece of armor," said Mo Fan. "That's fine, but the queue is currently until the end of next year," said Huo Tuo. Mo Fan was left speechless. The end of next year. He might not even have the chance to wear it before the hunter competition took place. "Can't you make an exception?" asked Mo Fan. "Sure. Just pay me 3 times the normal price, including the fees for working on public holidays," Huo Tuo said indifferently, while admiring the material. Mo Fan's forehead was covered in frown lines. "Can't you do it for free, considering that it's such a rare material, to fully display your passion in pursuing art instead of money when you decided to become a forgemaster?" Mo Fan asked shamelessly. "Enough with the nonsense, just pay me the right amount. If you can't afford the extra fees, come do some work for me, then. Old Bao has quite some talented hunters. It happens that I'm in need of some material, and normal hunters are not brave enough to accept my requests," said Huo Tuo. "I have to go to school still." Mo Fan was unwilling. "Who said anything about going to the wild? It's something here in the Magic City," said Huo Tuo. "Tell me about it first," replied Mo Fan. The Magic City was huge, and was basically an ecosystem. Humans were not the only residents here, there were quite a few demon beasts too. Mo Fan had already learned that from his past experiences. There was no way Mo Fan could afford paying 3 times the price, since old Bao had already told him that the cost to craft a piece of armor, even after his recommendation, was a whopping 20 million IMB. Mo Fan could only afford it after selling the corpse of the Xuanwu giant lizard, and adding some from his own pocket. 3 times the price would be 60 million IMB. It was no different than robbing him. "Have you heard of vampires?" whispered Huo Tuo. "Like you?" Mo Fan promptly asked in return. "How impolite. I'm referring to those that act like humans in the day, but prey on women at night. The demon beasts disguise themselves as humans, and need a human's blood to maintain their power. These vampires originate from the West," explained Huo Tuo. Chapter End. Versatile Mage. Chapter 432. For Justice. Vampires. Mo Fan had only seen them in novels or movies, and they were normally extraordinarily handsome, just like himself. "Wait, did you just say they ambush women?" asked Mo Fan. Huo Tuo nodded and said, "These vampires have the unique tastes. They don't just attack all women, but choose their prey carefully. The prey is normally gorgeous in our eyes, yet different vampires have different fetishes. Some prefer those with long hair, some prefer virgins, and some like fair, tender skin." "Are you sure they only suck their blood?" asked Mo Fan, his brows raised. "How would I know? I've only heard that the blood-sucking process takes quite a while, so they will normally find a remote place to enjoy themselves. As long as the sun has not risen, they can do whatever they want to the women with their fangs," Huo Tuo said sternly. "Assholes, who knew that such a bunch of jerks would exist in this world? How dare they not show any respect to me?" snapped Mo Fan. As the guardian of young women who hid under the night curtains of the large city, Mo Fan would never tolerate the acts of these vampires. If he could not purge and exterminate them, it would be a disgrace to his title as a Magic City law enforcer. When he saw that Mo Fan was rather intrigued, Huo Tuo added, "I need a fang, a vampire's fang. I'm still waiting for someone to accept the quest I've submitted to the Hunter Union. They don't believe that these creatures exist, but I'm confident that they're living here in the Magic City, and have already preyed on lots of women. Wait, so, are these vampires humans or demon beasts? Asked Mo Fan. Huo Tuo laughed and said, would it make any difference? Either humans or demon beasts, those who have done something intolerable shall be punished accordingly. Maybe their lineage is similar to humans, but their actions are no different from a demon beast. Mo Fan glanced at the old man in astonishment. He never thought the old man would say something worth pondering on. The old man was right. Since no one is taking the quest, it must be ranked fairly high. I'll get you the vampire's fang, and you'll not charge me the extra fees. I'm just a student, a povo, said Mo Fan. Then two fangs. Huo Tuo spread his fingers. Mo Fan cursed furiously. You're more like a vampire. Are you stupid or brainless? If you get your hands on a vampire, would he only have one fang? Chided Huo Tuo. Mo Fan kept his face blank. The old man was absolutely right about that. If even the hunters can't find any clue about these creatures, you have to give me a lead. The Magic City is so huge, and so populated. Where do I even start from? Said Mo Fan. I can't offer much, either. Once, I was taking the subway, but I missed the train, so I ended up waiting there for a very long time. I just happened to see a vampire feeding on his prey, but unfortunately, I couldn't save her in time. She died due to excessive loss of blood by the time I got her to the hospital. However, the doctors diagnosed that she had died from a sudden heart attack, instead of excessive loss of blood. I told the Hunter Union and the Magic Association that she was attacked by a human-like creature, yet when they checked the surveillance, they didn't even see the creature. They assumed that I imagined it. There might not be a creature like that in our country, but it's real in the West. They have come here to feed, and I happened to stumble onto one while he was enjoying his prey. I'm not a righteous man, but I tried my best to save the girl, so I thought that would be the end of it, until I learned from an ancient Western manual that the fangs of these vampires are the perfect material. So you're saying that the only clue is the girl that died? Mo Fan asked furiously. Huo Tuo nodded and spoke. The quest wouldn't have such a huge bounty if it were any easier. I'll give you the girl's name, and you're on your own. When you give me the fangs, I'll give you the armor. Otherwise, you will pay me 60 million RMB, not a cent less. I've got one more question. Go ahead. You're already an expert at sucking money. Why did you have to take the subway instead of taking a cab? Said Mo Fan. Huo Tuo fondled his beard and said, you have no idea. It's called being conservative. Mo Fan and Huo Tuo had a long discussion. Meanwhile, Li Junan muttered, I also have a question. Neither Mo Fan nor Huo Tuo gave him any attention. Li Junan seemed utterly troubled. He still could not understand. What good was snake scales without any snake mark? Mo Fan counted the days. There were only 7 days left until the second challenge week. If he was planning to wear the armor during that week, he had 7 days to find the vampire, and smack his fangs out. He definitely needed Lingerling's help for things like this. The quest's rank was fairly high, since the fees for asking the old man to craft the armor alone were already 20 million RMB. Leaving the old man's intention of increasing the price to 3 times the normal value aside, quests with a bounty of 10 million and above were normally for advanced magicians, and most of them even needed a party of advanced magicians. However, Huo Tuo could surely read Mo Fan's cultivation. The fact that he was willing to let Mo Fan handle it implied that the vampire's strength was not too crazy. The biggest problem now was knowing where to find a vampire. In such a populated area, unlike the mother scale skin phantom which would turn into a monster, Huo Tuo had mentioned that the vampires looked exactly like humans. It was impossible to identify them unless he stumbled onto one while they were feeding. The mother scale skin phantom enjoyed drinking human blood, too, but it was difficult to tell how the two were related. Either way, he should try and complete the quest as soon as possible. With the armor, his strength would improve rapidly, which would then allow him to challenge those with much higher ranks and secure more resources. No, that wasn't right. How could a man like him allow the vampires to harm the innocent girls in the city? It was all for the sake of justice. Ling, I've got us a job, a big one, said Mo Fan. Where are you? I'll be there right away. Ling's tone was calm like always, which definitely did not belong to a girl her age. However, the fact that she arrived fairly quickly was a good indication that the little girl was extremely bored. After Ling arrived, Mo Fan brought the little lowly along and headed to the household of the deceased girl whose death Huo Tuo had witnessed, to see if they could find any useful clues there. Chapter N. Versatile Mage. Chapter 433. Isn't she alive? Mo Fan and Ling split up. Ling made her way to the police to gather information regarding the victim and ask for more clues from the policemen and doctors who were in charge of the incident in the past. On the other hand, Mo Fan simply headed to the girl's house, to see if he could learn anything new from her family. The incident had not happened too long ago, it had only been 2 months. Mo Fan arrived at an old street where the residents lived above the shops. To enter the house, he had to squeeze his way through a small alleyway and find the main entrance. The house had 2 floors. Its front faced the street, filled with a few snack shops and a cozy, exquisite boutique. The second floor had some pots of flowers, with vines along the walls, adding some color to the aged house. It seemed like a comfortable place to live in. The house had a small backyard, with a grapevine trellis. The branches hanging on them swayed gently in the wind. It looked like a suitable place for a family to live a cozy and happy life, yet the garden and the balcony on the second floor had piles of items used for funerals. Mo Fan was unsure why they were still there after 2 months, and it altered the appearance of the house. "Hello, is this Lu Xian's home?" asked Mo Fan. "Oh, it is. Hi, and you are?" A rather beautiful girl walked out of the house. She wore a polite smile, yet her brows displayed a hint of sorrow. You. Mo Fan was dumbfounded when he got a clearer look at the girl. He pointed at her, unable to find any words. The girl stared at Mo Fan with a confused look, not sure why he would react like this. Mo Fan took a few steps back. He was surprised, as the girl who greeted him was the same girl Huo Tuo had mentioned was dead. Mo Fan had seen her photo before coming here, so he immediately recognized her. He had also seen the death certificate. It stated that the corpse had been cremated, yet she was alive and standing right in front of him. Could it be that the legends were real? That those whose blood was sucked dry by vampires would resurrect on the first full moon and become one of them? The girl had a pale face, lacking the color of blood. Her lips were fairly pink and smooth, giving her a pitiful look that urged Mo Fan to feel tender affection for her. Yet it might only be a great disguise from a vampire. A female vampire. Didn't that mean she would be interested in handsome men like himself? "I'm Lu Xian's sister, Lu Ru. We're twins," said the girl, after she finally realized something. Mo Fan's lips twisted. Damn it, his imagination had been getting wilder lately. He should definitely cut down on American TV shows. Twins? Oh, that scared the shit out of me. Mo Fan took a deep breath. The girl giggled at his reaction, then added, "You must be my sister's friend." Yeah, said Mo Fan with a nod. Mo Fan did not reveal his identity as a hunter. Many commoners, including magicians, had no idea things like vampires existed in the city. There was no need to give them unnecessary fear, so most of the time during an investigation, Mo Fan and Ling would use false identities. "The house is a bit messy. Let's chat in the shop here," Lu Ru said. She did not invite Mo Fan into the house, as it was unwise when she was home alone. Mo Fan nodded. He realized Lu Ru was fairly smart, but he was unsure what kind of personality her sister, who had passed away in the prime of life, had. Inside the small cafe, Mo Fan ordered a glass of juice for Lu Ru and some food for himself. He was in a rush to start his detective work, so he had completely forgotten about lunch. I saw that your house still has piles of items used during the funeral. It's been 2 months, why hasn't anyone cleared them out yet? Asked Mo Fan. There isn't anyone else in the family. Our relatives left after helping me with the funeral. I also went away to divert my mind from the grief. I only came back yesterday, so I haven't had the time to clear them yet, Lu Ru said softly, with a hint of sorrow. Only the two of you were living in the house? Asked Mo Fan. Yeah. Our parents had passed away a long time ago. My sister stopped going to school so she could work, just so I could continue with my studies. Lu Ru's voice trembled slightly. Mo Fan looked at the girl. The brief sentences were enough for him to imagine the scene where the two sisters relied upon each other. They must have been extremely close. I'll lend you a hand later. You won't be able to clear them on your own, offered Mo Fan kindly. Lu Ru shook her head. It was obvious she did not want to trouble him. She glanced at him and asked, I've never seen you before. Are you my sister's colleague? Mo Fan, who had already done his homework, replied, not a colleague, but her workplace is right beside mine, so we would talk occasionally. Oh, it's you. My sister mentioned you before. She said you've always looked after her, said Lu Ru. Mo Fan knew Lu Ru was talking about someone else, so he gladly played along. Even though Lu Ru still seemed slightly depressed, she had endured the most painful period, so Mo Fan cut straight to the topic. Did your sister die from a heart attack? I guess so. That's what the doctors told me, said Lu Ru. But I heard she was bitten by something, and she was suffering from severe anemia at the time, said Mo Fan. My sister has always been weak and suffered from anemia occasionally. I don't think there's anything strange about that, said Lu Ru. I stumbled into the old man who sent your sister to the hospital. He insisted he saw something. I'm quite curious, too. Your sister seemed well the last time I saw her, yet I was shocked to hear that she had passed away from a heart attack. I did sense that she was panicking a little a few days before she passed away, so I asked her, and she told me something about a stalker. Did she tell you anything about that? Mo Fan directed the conversation carefully. Lu Ru pursed her lips as she began to recall the past. A while later, she lowered her voice and said, I've never heard anything about a stalker, but my sister did seem quite cautious a few days before it happened. 2 months ago, the weather wasn't as chilly, so I opened the windows when I came back from school, but she panicked and shut them. It seems like something did happen during those days. Mo Fan adjusted the glasses on his nose. Just so he would look more like a famous detective, he had even bought a pair of glasses. Chapter End. Versatile Mage. Chapter 434. What did she bump into? Are you saying that my sister's death is not an accident? Lu Ru's eyes flickered with a rather complicated emotion. Mo Fan nodded before adding, that old man is a strong magician, so I'm sure he's telling the truth. Besides, did you really think your sister was suffering from a heart disease? Lu Ru was immersed in her thoughts for a while before saying, it's true that her health wasn't great, but I only knew about her heart disease after she passed away. I found it unbelievable, too. I was actually quite bothered by it. I want to know the truth. So if you happen to recall anything strange about your sister, or someone odd around her, please tell me as soon as possible, especially if the person was a man, said Mo Fan. Based on the information provided by Huo Tuo, it turned out that only male vampires would harm a woman. They would always tail their prey for some time or even make direct contact with them. Mo Fan assumed that any stranger who initiated contact with her prior to her death would be the most suspicious. If they were anyone, I believe you fulfill the criteria you've mentioned, said Lu Ru. Mo Fan felt awkward. It seemed like the person he was disguised as was interested in chasing her sister. However, they did serve as an important clue. He should investigate that person later, as he might obtain some useful information. Is there anyone else, apart from myself? Asked Mo Fan. Lu Ru shook her head. She glanced at her watch and said, "It's getting late. I should be heading to school. If there's anything else, you can find me at Qingyuan Girls' College." Mo Fan knew he should not ask further and proceeded to see her off. Not long after Lu Ru left, Mo Fan's figure transformed into a black shadow and swept past the vines. He quietly snuck into Lu Xian and Lu Ru's rooms. The rooms were filled with feminine items, pink, blue, and powder blue. The rooms had lots of dolls on the beds, the desks, and hanging on the walls. Mo Fan tried to search for clues with his discerning eye, but unfortunately, apart from a variety of lingerie, he did not find anything interesting. "Looks like I'll have to see if Lingerling managed to find something useful," he murmured. Mo Fan soon met up with Lingerling. The corpse was cremated a long time ago. If it were preserved, it would be fairly easy to tell if she were attacked by a vampire. Who would have thought these concealed creatures were coming to our country? Aren't the churches responsible for keeping an eye out for them? Said Lingerling. "Well, did you learn anything useful?" Asked Mo Fan. Lingerling flipped through the pages on her laptop and said, after organizing her thoughts, "Every document states that she died of a heart disease. There was nothing strange about her death. There was nothing fishy about the death certification either. To be honest, if Huo Tuo hadn't insisted that he had witnessed her death, I'm sure the incident wouldn't even be considered the work of a demon beast. No wonder no one was willing to take the quest. It sounds fairly tricky, as we don't really have any clues. Besides, if the vampire was only picking on a random girl, it would be impossible to locate him with all the people in the city." "This is such a headache," agreed Mo Fan. "I've already gotten the recordings of the surveillance cameras at the subway. I didn't have time to look at them yet. Hopefully, we'll find some clue from them," said Lingerling. "If we really can't find anything, I guess we'll have to talk to her sister Lu Ru again," said Mo Fan. "I guess that's the only choice we have." Mo Fan and Lingerling played the recordings of the surveillance cameras at the station where Lu Xian died. To prevent themselves from missing any details, Mo Fan and Lingerling even decided to visit the same station at night, to repeat the incident by tracing her path at the same time. The station was not too crowded at night. At the entrance of the station, the stairs leading to the underground were completely empty. It felt quite sinister under the gloomy light, yet they could hear some weird metal clanking in the distance. "Mo Fan, did you realize? Most of the lines are no longer running at this time. The last train departed 5 minutes ago, which means everyone would have boarded the train 5 minutes ago. Lu Xian should know the timetable too. Why would she bother going into the station?" Asked Lingerling, carrying her laptop. The laptop showed a combination of different scenes captured from every camera. They could see Lu Xian slowly walking into the station in her heels on the dark black and white recording. There was no sign of anyone else around her. Lingerling mimicked Lu Xian's footsteps by following her trail from the recordings. Wherever Lu Xian walked in the recordings, Lingerling would follow her path and even mimic her actions. It was a commonly used tactic by the police for investigations. Most hunter agencies in cities had also mastered this basic technique. Indeed, the last train has already departed, yet she's still going into the station. "It doesn't even feel like she's trying to catch a train," said Mo Fan, pointing at Lu Xian, who looked exactly like her sister. "Then she must have been lured into the station," interpreted Lingerling. "It's very likely. We'll look for the surveillance cams that captured the moments before she entered the station. There are shops and traffic lights nearby. Maybe we can find whoever made contact with her before she entered," said Mo Fan. "It suddenly feels slightly creepy. If a vampire is capable of seducing his prey, commoners would have a hard time protecting themselves," said Lingerling. Mo Fan recalled the bewitching magic spider at Jinlan Desolated City. The creature also had the ability to manipulate the minds of its prey. The vampire was able to hide in the city and feed on humans, so it would not be a surprise if he had similar methods of manipulating his prey, too. This vampire is a lot smarter than the demon beasts we've encountered before. If Lu Xian was actually attacked by a vampire, it also proves that the creature knows how to fake his victim's cause of death. As long as the victim is diagnosed to have died of a heart attack, the case would never reach the hands of hunters. In other words, the vampire would have no worries. There are millions of people in this city, so it's nothing strange that a few have died in accidents. Mo Fan, look, she suddenly stopped in that spot, as if she had just bumped into someone. Yelled Lingerling. Chapter end. Versatile Mage. Chapter 435. A Special Fetish. Mo Fan asked Lingerling to replay the recording. As she had observed, Lu Xian suddenly came to a stop halfway, but Mo Fan still could not see anything in front of her after taking a closer look. Mo Fan saw her take a few more steps forward. The place did not have much light, and the girl slowed down her pace in the shadow, coming to a stop. Unfortunately, a huge pillar was blocking most of her figure. It seemed like she was using the pillar as a support as she was trying to catch her breath, like a patient suffering from a disease breaking out. However, after replaying the recording a few more times, it felt more like something was grabbing onto the girl, preventing her from moving. After quite some time, she seemed to be worn out, as if she was suffocating. Her body stiffened as she slowly fell to the ground. Soon after, the surveillance cam caught Huo Tuo rushing toward the girl in a panic. He did not inspect her condition, but seemed to be chasing after something. He was yelling furiously at the empty station. Following that, Huo Tuo carried Lu Xian out of the station, but he could not get her to treatment in time. It looks like he did see something, said Mo Fan. I've already checked the recording. There's no one hiding by the pillar, yet when half of Lu Xian's figure was blocked by the pillar, it did seem like something was grabbing her. Mo Fan, you're a shadow magician. Do you think someone might be using a shadow element spell to hide behind the pillar? The recording is in grayscale, so it's hard to tell if the shadows were moving, analyzed Lingerling. It's possible. Places like subway stations would have plenty of shadows, so a shadow magician could easily move between them, Mo Fan nodded. Those were all the clues provided by the recordings, basically confirming that the culprit had abilities of the shadow element. Mo Fan and Lingerling paid the man whom Mo Fan was disguised as a visit, but they discovered that he was only an ordinary shopkeeper. He did not provide any useful information. Without a lead, Mo Fan and Lingerling had no choice but to head to the girls' college where Lu Ru was studying, to see if she could provide any more useful information. Otherwise, it was impossible to proceed with the quest. Mo Fan had just learned of the existence of the girls' college in Shanghai. The place seemed to be educating nurses, stewardesses, and models, hence there were lots of gorgeous students. The people nearby referred to it as men's heaven. Mo Fan deeply agreed with the saying. Just a few keywords were enough to trigger his unlimited imagination. Mo Fan saw a class full of beautiful girls when he found Lu Ru's classroom. He almost forgot why he was there. Are you looking for Lu Ru? She went back to her room as she suddenly felt uncomfortable, probably because of her period, said a rather blunt girl. The girls nearby giggled when they heard her words. One among them, who was fairly busty, said, "No one would have a period 3 to 4 times in a month. I bet she's sick because of messing with men too much outside of the school." Don't say it like that. Her sister has just passed away. We're only stating the truth. She has been occasionally asking for leave, and always says no when asked to see a doctor. God knows if she's contracted some disease. It was obvious that Lu Ru was not well received in the class. On second thought, it seemed fairly reasonable. Lu Ru had a delicate and pretty look, and a good physique. Her melancholy appearance was urging someone to give her tender affection. Mo Fan did have a good first impression of her, and it was quite common for girls like her to be excluded by a group of bitches. Mo Fan decided to pay her a visit as a friend. Most of the students were in class at this time. The dorm was under the supervision of an elderly woman, yet Mo Fan managed to sneak inside with the help of his shadow element. Lu Ru's room was located at the end of the corridor, close to the woods outside of the dorm. Mo Fan did not barge in straight away. He knocked on the door politely. "Are you skipping classes again? Ha, it's you." Lu Ru did not seem well, and looked quite surprised when she saw Mo Fan. "I want to ask you about something, but your classmates told me you were sick, so here I am paying you a visit," said Mo Fan. "I'm fine, thanks for your concern. Besides, I've already met the friend my sister mentioned beside her workplace, so please stop disturbing me," said Lu Ru with an alert look. Mo Fan was startled. He did not expect his disguise to fall apart so quickly. He let out an awkward smile, and when he was about to explain himself, Lu Ru had shut the door closed. Mo Fan left helplessly. The situation was rather grim, and it felt extremely difficult to complete the quest. They had no leads at all, and even if they could prove that Lu Xian had died after being bitten by something, they had no chance of capturing the vampire. After meeting up with Lingling at the school gate, Lingling immediately asked about his progress. "Say, Lu Ru has been unwell recently, could it be?" Lingling speculated wildly. Her classmates did mention that she was having periods, which could be linked to anemia. Perhaps she was not falling sick, but the vampire was secretly sucking her blood without her noticing. Huo Tuo did mention that most vampires have their own fetishes. Lu Xian and Lu Ru were twins, so it's likely that the vampire's fetish is twins. Therefore, after getting his hands on the elder sister, he has now come to prey on the younger sister. Interpreted Mo Fan. "So we can find the guy by keeping an eye on Lu Ru," said Lingling. Mo Fan felt an urge to give the smart Lingling a kiss after finding a glimpse of hope to complete his quest. Unfortunately, Lingling had already seen through his motives, and blocked her red face with her little palm. "Please, I still plan to marry in the future," said Lingling, her face full of disdain. Mo Fan uttered a hollow laugh. Mo Fan and Lingling waited until nighttime. They were crouched in the bushes outside of the fence, hoping that a hare would kill itself by crashing into a tree trunk while they waited. Nothing happened on the first night. Lu Ru stayed in her room. Even her meals were brought home by her roommate. On the second night, there was some movement in the woods, but it turned out to be some student having a secret date with some guy from outside of the school. "Can't they find a room?" Mo Fan crouched in the bushes while hearing the out-of-place voices coming from close distance. Luckily Lingling was not around, as it was surely not the best scene for her to witness. During the second half of the night, Mo Fan felt like falling asleep, but he suddenly felt the presence of the shadow element lingering in the air. Mo Fan quickly gathered his focus. The fish had taken the bait. Chapter end. Please guys like, comment, share, and subscribe.